Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Do apologise for the lateness of my first video today, but as Confucius said, when Honourable Lady Wife wants to host New Year's Eve party, Honourable Lady Wife's husband has to pitch in, go shopping, top up the drinks cabinet and things, and cannot be making YouTube videos. Or at least Confucius would be saying that if he was alive today. But we've done all that. I've got so many stories I want to get through and so little time left. Probably only going to do 2 or 3 videos today, unfortunately. But be up early in the morning. We'll crack through and we'll do all these stories plus anything else that comes in. But there is a lot to do. Don't expect much on New Year's Day, though. Oh, that's going to be rough. But there we go. Incidentally, before we get into this one, I would like to say thank you very much to everyone who has recently subscribed and, I'm afraid, resubscribed because they're up to it again. A load of people saying that they've been bounced off and having to go back in and recheck their subscriptions. So do please check that you're still subscribed if you're a regular viewer. And if you are a regular viewer who has never subscribed, please do subscribe. If you're coming here to watch, you may as well be subscribed. And it really helps the channel grow because we need all the help we can get. We're a political channel and we get pushed down. So every time you subscribe, it lifts us massively. Now, the first story I want to do is to talk about basically the NHS and how doctors feel that they're working in a war zone thanks to the problems encountered by a lack of resources. So we'll kick this one off and we'll get into it and see, what the problems are, although we know it's the SNP and their underfunding. Anyway, let's have a look and here goes. So, Scottish doctors feel like they are working in a war zone due to SNP funding failures, says the BMA. And if anyone's going to tell you that, and it's the BMA telling you it, you best listen. They are, after all, the people at the pointy end who know what's going on. Unlike SNP politicians who don't have a clue, do they? The British Medical Association say that staffing in Scottish hospitals is at dangerously low levels. And we've reported on that in the past, and we're saying that not only is recruitment problematic, but retention is problematic as well. And there's often, even attacks, physical attacks in hospitals driving people out. The lack of funding, the stresses, because everyone is, because of the understaffing, means the staff that are there are overworked, overtaxed, overstressed, and they're going off often with depression and other mental conditions. Nothing physical, but purely the workload is driving people bonkers. And of course, with the latest tax rises, that will also drive people away. Those people at that level, like doctors, will be taxed out and they will just simply go, you know what, it's not worth it. So the senior ones will retire, or people won't bother putting the hours in because 70% of what they earn is going back to the government, or they'll move south of the border to just earn a bit more and have less tax. And to be honest, who can blame them? If you were in a position where you could move 20 miles south and save thousands and thousands of pounds a year in tax, would you do it? Of course you would. Anyway, they warned that 80% of medics fear the current situation is unsafe. 80% of people in the medical profession say the funding and the service levels and the staffing levels in hospitals is so dangerously low that it actually represents a danger to people. That is... it's terrible, and B, it goes to show how little the SNP care about the NHS. While they've always got money for funding and foreign embassies and things, that's fine. But if your NHS was up and running and there wasn't a problem, okay, you'd let it go. But when this is clearly not the case, then you have to ask where the priorities lie. And if they're not lying in the NHS, then what is the point? Anyway, doctors in Scotland are stretching themselves to breaking point after a damning survey revealed that 80% of them believe staffing levels are unsafe. Now, unsafe for the patients, sure. Unsafe for the doctors and nurses themselves. The staff themselves, as I say, will be put under enormous pressures. Dr. Ian Kennedy, chairman of the BMA, voiced concern at the dangerously low staff numbers in the NHS as he urged SNP ministers to act urgently. But they won't. They just won't. They don't care. They're psychopaths and sociopaths. They're just not human. There's something inside them that is broken. Of the 610 respondents to the survey, just 1% of them said they feel their department is well staffed. 1% say their staff levels are adequate. 49% said staffing levels among doctors and their wider support teams are sometimes unsafe. And 31% said that this is the case on a regular basis. Wow. So only 1% of people said they had sufficient staffing levels, which means 99% of departments and areas and whatever have unsafe staffing or inadequate staffing levels. 99%. That is unacceptable. The SNAP survey, which was sent to around 16,000 BMA Scotland members, also found 62% were worried there will not be enough doctors to meet patient demand this winter. And we can see that with the enormous waiting lists. 8, 12, even 18-hour waiting in A&E. One woman, 18 hours, sitting in an ambulance at the hospital waiting to get into A&E. It's not good enough. Dr Kennedy said the Scottish Government must publish its medical workforce projection strategy, which has been delayed for almost a year. Both medical and wider staffing in Scotland's NHS are at dangerously low levels, he said. They've had this report for a year. They've not released it. And the reason they've not released it is because it is so bad, so awful, that even the SNP are embarrassed about how bad it is. And they know that everything they do is awful. Why is Matheson not being pressured to release this and then resigning because it's so bad? It's on his watch. He's been there for nearly a year. He should have dealt with this, but he hasn't, of course. He's too busy worrying about whatever it is that's going to be found on his iPad, whatever it is what he's knocking out in Morocco, you know? And I reckon it's bad. And I honestly think, and I can't comment, I won't, I can't prove, is what I can comment. I'm going to comment, I'm going to tell you now, but I can't prove it. But I speculate, and it is my opinion, that it is something very, very bad indeed, possibly with very young people. Why else would he not want his iPad to be examined? If it was, as he says, only football, then he would have nothing to worry about. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Anyway, he said, this is getting back to Kennedy, he said, now is not the time for platitudes or to tell us that we're at a record high in terms of doctors, because it will simply not wash with the profession, who are stretching themselves to breaking point, risking harm to themselves, in a bid to provide a level of care to the people of Scotland need and deserve. And if your doctor isn't up to the job because he's stressed, it will lead to inadequate or improper care of the patients. Patients will suffer. Undoubtedly, people will die simply because of a lack of funding, because they're spending money on foreign embassies and shiny brochures, on spin doctors and not on real doctors. He said he is deeply concerned by the survey responses, with one doctor stating anonymously, every week it's starting to feel like working in a war zone. This is only going to get worse as the winter progresses. Dr Kennedy added, if the Scottish Government will not heed BMA warnings, I employ ministers and their staff to listen to Scotland's doctors. But they will not listen. He said the overall whole-time equivalent GP numbers have fallen by more than 5% in 10 years, and consultant vacancies increased by more than 11%. So over 10% of your consultancies are unfilled. I mean, this is just unbelievably bad. Whatever aspect of medicine you need, it's always the consultant that ultimately decides the treatment. GPs will sort out the little minor stuff, the family doctoring and things like that. But they are the gateway to consultants. And if the consultant isn't there, the GP quite literally can't do anything about it. There are many medications, for example. Doctors and all the medics, they have a thing called a formulary, which is a difficult word to actually say sometimes. But they have a formulary, which is a book of all the available medications and treatments and everything there that they can give. But depending on your level, limits what you can sign off. I'm on this stuff. Now, my GP cannot prescribe that for me. That has to be prescribed by a consultant. Now, my GP can issue top-up replacement prescriptions for it, but it must be originally prescribed by a consultant. For some things, for example, I'm on this stuff, another one. My GP can't even issue that. I have to go back up to the hospital to see the consultant to get that medication. So different medication can only be issued by consultants. If the consultants aren't there and people need this, they don't get it. In case you're wondering, that's acetretin. The other one, I'll tell you what the other one is. Pyridostigmine. There we go. But these are things, and different levels of medication from different levels of doctoring. But if you, like I say, if you need a consultant and there isn't there, people will die because they're not getting the treatment, they're not getting the medication. SNP, why are you killing people? Why are you making these choices to deliberately kill the masses? Because choices they are, and you've made them. I'll stop there and come up. Do we think things are going to get better or worse as time goes on? Initially worse, because of course you've got winter coming, the stresses, the strains are put on it. Elderly people fall over, break their hip. They remain in hospital longer than young people do because the repair times are longer. There's often not complete treatment plans in place. There's no joined up thinking. But long term, of course, it is just going to get worse. People retiring, elderly people retiring out of the service. Nobody's coming in. They've got massive recruitment problems. The stresses are going to drive more and more people away. And the whole of the NHS in Scotland will collapse in on itself due to a lack of funding done deliberately by a government that doesn't care. They have made these deliberate policy decisions, and it's just going to kill the masses. It's what they're looking for. The mass murder, again on a grand scale, through decision. Murder through policy. And people will still vote for them. Never mind. I'll stop now. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will call to you later. Bye.